Yeah, this is Chris Gotti Lorenzo, and you're watching Giving Him the Business, and my partner, Don Dinero.
Mr. Money for the Gringos, you already know. Like, subscribe, follow us. We're doing our thing.
Thank you. Que bola, que bola.
Dándole el negocio.
Yes, yes. You know, I want to just make sure everyone understands we really do appreciate all of the love we're getting for this, and we're going to keep giving you and bringing you incredible interviews like we have today. Man, what's the words can I say? This is when I first met her, again, as a host, a casino host. This episode is about casino hosts, and she was a casino host. She was working for my client, Phil Ivey, and I wanted to expose the casino host world. And here we have today, Lorraine Lindsey. Yes, let's give it up for Lorraine, man.
Yeah, I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you for coming in short notice again, putting it together. And I just think we have an incredible interview today with you about casino host and all of the different things that exist. Actually, it's one of my dream jobs.
Is it really?
It was one of the jobs that I said if I had a choice of a job, I would love to be a casino host. Because I got to see up close and personal what it entails.
Absolutely, yeah.
When you're dealing with especially like whales, right?
Mm-hmm.
And high rollers that come in and gamble. I'm a big gambler, but nothing compared to like a Phil.
I mean, I've got stories. We're going to talk about some of those stories, yeah.
But, compared to a Phil Ivey, this is like night and day, or these kind of whales like him. I managed Phil, everyone knows that, for over 20 years. So I have extensive information, and that's what I want someone on the other side to bring to the table. And again, I want to thank you because you also allowed me on your podcast.
Yes, which was great. I absolutely loved you coming on the show because you just have, first of all, you're really good at sharing your story.
Thank you.
It's very clear and concise, and I'm big on mindset, which is what my show is about.
Yes. Mindset is everything.
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 It is actually how I got into a position as a casino host. Because it is an ideal job for a lot of people who are watching it from the outside looking in. They see us in this glamorous life,
lifestyle,
living vicariously through these millionaires and billionaires.
Big words,
and
vicarious.
Yeah. and so we're walking around like these powerhouses, and everyone in the casino is like, I want to do what they're doing.
Yeah.
But they don't know, especially as a woman in the business,
we're going to talk about that
the ins and outs of what it takes.
Well, okay, since you brought it up, let's go there. Being a female in this industry where the majority of the gamblers that we're talking about are men.
Mostly men, correct.
Mostly
on the high
men.
end. On the
you
high
know
end.
why? Because women don't want to lose
money. Can I ask
money.
you something?
That's why it's supposed to be.
You guys are jumping to things, and I'm ignorant to this.
Sure.
And you guys are talking the lingo. What is... Because let's ask you the question. What does it entail?
Okay,
we're
that's
actually
a really good question.
Great to
That's
bring
a
it
great
back.
way to start.
Go bring it back. Thank you.
Yeah, because it does, before you go all the crazy stuff.
Because some people literally don't know what a casino host is.
You're right. Because I'm like, for us, it's what we do. So thank you. If someone has that casino host job, what is entitled? What do you have to do?
So us casino hosts jokingly always refer to ourselves as glorified concierge, right?
Yes.
Our job, depending on whether you're the hunter or the gatherer of the casino, okay, so there's casino hosts who work the floors and take care of the business on, let's say the low to mid-end customers, your incremental business, some of your local guys. Then you have the hunters, which is the position that I was in, where you're literally out there, like networking, building relationships, turning up every rock to see. It's not about who has money, but it's who's going to spend the money on a table, right?
Who's going to gamble.
And who's going to gamble. And understanding it's not like that normal target market demographic where I'm going to go to the Billionaires Club and meet people. It's like, no, I need to find someone who has the essence of this thing called gambling and who's willing to put a significant amount of money on this table to win. And so I would travel the world, literally the world, Dubai, Monaco, France, Canada, all over the United States, looking for these people who will take a gamble.
So let me ask the question, because you said, what's the level of resources that they have to gamble with in order to gather
How do they
your
qualify,
attention?
right?
To get my attention.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
For the
Because
level that I was hosting.
You told us the low level, mid level is one set, but they're not able to move. They're not traveling to Monaco for that gambler. That's
Correct.
really the walk-in traffic
Correct.
of a casino.
Yeah.
But now here is your job is to go wherever these guys are or women are, to go find them and to bring them into the casino.
And truly, when it gets to that level, because I didn't start off that way, right? I started off as someone who literally worked the floors
Sure.
and try to build, the small clientele. Because just because people gamble at lower levels, it doesn't mean they don't have the wealth or the connections that people who gamble
They
higher.
just don't want to risk it on the table.
Right. So I started off doing that. And then eventually I was promoted up because my clientele, I was able to develop the players. My title was Director of Player Development. That was my fancy title. So it was a matter of being...
Like you were looking for football
sounds
players.
so... They're like, player development, what is that?
Yeah.
You're developing us, you're teaching us how to gamble more. And it's like, yes. I'm sorry, and I lost my train of thought, but what was your question specifically?
How much money?
To gather my attention in the end.
To get
Yeah.
your attention, yes.
So for me, at the level that I was playing on, for my level of clientele that I would like to, or that I would pursue, on the low end, they were about 100,000, 150,000. My biggest account was a $10-20 million account. So he had a $10 million bankroll, but he could go as high as 20 million.
Right.
And that particular guest, this is actually a moment in my career that I knew that this was not the job for me.
Oh, man.
That I knew that the work was lucrative. I knew that it was fulfilling a purpose for me to be able to take care of my son because I was a single mother.
Right.
So I loved it in that aspect, and I loved the adventure. But I remember one time he came into the casino. He's a baccarat player. And he sat down and he lost $10 million within 4 hours.
Wow.
His average bet was $260,000 a hand.
Yeah.
And for that quarter, it was Q4, I will never forget. I remember my boss and everybody was like, how did she get this guy? Because everybody was after him. There's only a few handful of certain players that play at that level.
Sure.
And they're like, how does she get that?
That's like the 1% of the world.
Absolutely. Even less than, I would say.
Wow. Yes.
But how did she get him? How did she get this relationship with him? Because everybody from the top dogs, the senior vice, no one could get this guy in. And everyone's patting me on the back and, you moved the needle for this quarter. What an unbelievable success. And in that moment, when I was at the top of my career, I felt the worst.
Because he lost $10 million.
I just, in my mind, it's like, this is not what...
We're celebrating someone's loss, kind of, right?
We're celebrating, and he has ungodly money. So it was for him. Money, one thing I learned about this business is money is incredibly relative. $1 and $1,000 is interchangeable, depending on who's handling the money.
Yes.
But he loathed his money. He came from very, very humble beginnings. And he worked his way up. He had a dream to be successful. He has a very unbelievable story. He really should write a book on how he came into his wealth. But in the end, when I was nurturing that relationship, and we'll get to how I build these relationships, but when I was nurturing that relationship, he had told me this story, and he says, Lorraine, how many weddings do you think that I'm invited to?
Oh, wow.
And I was like, I don't know. He goes, all of them, because I'm the best gift giver, because I have the most money.
Right.
And he says, but when you make a certain amount of money in your life, nothing you get doesn't come at a cost. And so for him, it has cost him genuine relationships with people.
Money.
He doesn't trust people because he feels like everyone's agenda is his wealth.
You know what's crazy? I know a significant amount of
careful what you wish
very
for.
wealthy individuals, and they all have that. They all feel like someone's after their money. I took a very wealthy guy, Israel England, I'll say his name.
Okay.
Dear friend, mentor. And I took him when I first met him, and I said, I'm going to bring you to Vegas, not to gamble. He loved boxing. I know Floyd. I know Phil. We get the best seats in the house, ringside. And he's never done ringside. He's very low key. Not because he can't afford it, obviously. He's multi-billion-dollar man. So not about cost. It's just he likes to be low key. But he did it for me. And he came in and we watched the fight. I didn't let him pay for anything that weekend. Not because I'm trying to impress him. It's just who I am. If I invite you, I do it.
Right.
I got him a 2-bedroom suite. We're at the Bellagio. I'm thinking that's great. But, he's a multi-billionaire, not
Right.
me being very ignorant in a sense. And he sits there, he's like, yeah, this is cute. But it's not what he would normally get. But he accepted it graciously. And he did the whole weekend with me. We went to nightclubs. I paid for everything. He tells me when the weekend's over, you have to fly back with me. I said, I can't. I got work to do. I'm here with Phil. I got work to do. He's like, no. No, I'm not letting you tell me no. He said, I'll fly you back and then I'll fly you back. Right? We go back to New York and then I'll fly you right back to Vegas.
Right.
But he made me get on the plane with him and I said, no problem. I'm going to do it. I get on the plane and he confides in me that night and he said, I have guys that are worth so much money in my life that never bought me nothing.
Wow.
He said, and here you are. I know you don't have money like they do. He said, and you pay for everything. And I wouldn't let him pay. And he always was ready to pay. And I said, no, this is on me. This is not that. And we had an incredible weekend, but he confided in me and let me know that he really doesn't have friends. They're very lonely, man. A lot of these billionaires are very lonely.
100% accurate. And that is something that I saw quite a bit over the years that I was a host. Especially when I was dealing with people with levels of wealth. The trade-off, right, of what it costs truly to be on that level. And again, like I said, this guy, circling back, as he loathed his money. For him to blow $10 million on the table was because he hated the wealth.
Right. He hated what wealth has done to him.
Correct.
Mindset.
Right.
Mindset of the people around him. I get it.
And the thing is, and when I say he hated his wealth, he doesn't hate the journey and the importance of money.
Sure.
But again, he didn't realize the lonely space that it would create from, and it goes on all levels, right? From women to, and with this guy, he's in his 60s, a young man, he had money for a while, for a very long period of time. And again, just seemed like always loved the attention or he was a little bit like on the needy side even, so, but it was, that was that moment in my career where I was like, this is not moving my soul.
It's very, I understand that completely because I felt that not with him, but with others that are in that same space. And, it was a learning lesson for me in the sense I don't have their wealth. I'm not broke, but I don't have their wealth. And at the end of the day, I deal with very low level people all the time, regular, but we're great. I'm not trying to say anything. You just don't have money. So there's always a need or want. And I had to learn how to actually talk to them so I don't feel that energy that they do. And I let them know. So even guys that are incarcerated, I tell them, I said, I don't owe you nothing.
Right.
And I get it clear early. And that was so helpful for me. So a lot of them may not know how to actually talk to the people around them to make them so they're comfortable with their own wealth and don't have to worry about the pressures that come with that wealth.
Right.
But that's what I did. I did that early. And I mean, I recommend that. That's what they do. They just kind of put it on the table. But he told me after that trip, he calls me puppy. He said, hey, puppy. He said, you could ask me for anything, but I know you won't ask me for anything.
But what's powerful about that is, and that was something also in these years that I was doing this job, is being very responsible with my relationships.
Exactly.
And I think that people are not, right? I know that they have, we talked off camera about respect, that they have a level of respect for me and that I have a level of respect for them, that if there were ever a moment in time where I came to them for something because I've respected who they are and have never taken advantage of that relationship, that if they knew I came to them and they knew, okay, she has my ear.
Yes.
And that's something that's super important when you're talking about being networking and being a resource and having resources in your life. It's like you have to really nurture those relationships and really respect them. Be authentic. There were clients and customers that I had during that time that were big players. I'll tell you
we're gonna
an
get
indecent
into
proposal story.
Okay.
And even though he was a very valuable player for my books and for my account,
we're going to talk about your books as well.
Who he was integrally, and who I was did not align, and I was not willing to compromise myself
just for that
business.
for the book.
Yeah. because you have to think abundant versus scarcity.
Sure.
And so when I was doing that job, which I recently burned the boats in the casino world, moved on. But when I was doing that job, that was something that was always at the forefront. No matter what, I always have to have a sense of self and no compromise in my integrity. The business will be there and it'll be with the right people.
So something that I never told anyone,
Uh-huh.
again, is I said I would love to be a casino host.
Okay.
I technically was for a run.
What?
With me.
Like an independent?
Independent.
Okay.
I didn't work for a casino.
Okay.
Like you was with a big casino.
Yeah.
But I wasn't with a Bellagio or any of these guys. I was an independent rep.
Okay.
But I did it through somebody. So I'm technically working with him. But we did it for Phil.
Oh, okay.
So we rep Phil Ivey.
Very familiar with that world, yes.
Yes. So I rep my client, Phil Ivey, and we actually was a casino rep or a host, basically. So he was our rep. He was our independent rep. Tom Benani's great guy.
Okay, I've heard
so
that
me
name.
and Tom, we linked together and we partnered. And Tom would go to all the casinos and cut our deals. We told him what we want. We gave him our ransom note. Because that's basically what these hosts
Well, a lot of players, big end, that's what they were doing. They were leveraging the deals to kind of maneuver and move around.
Yeah.
And the casinos started getting a little wind of that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But continue, I'm sorry.
No, listen to me. That is another thing that people don't know. We did a 360 on ESPN with Phil.
Okay.
And we ran this thing called a dice tour for over 2.5 years where we was going to all these
That's
casinos.
right. He loved dice, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Craps. We went to all these casinos, but we cut deals in all the casinos. And what people don't realize is you make money back, or you make money. That host that's hosting, like yourself, when you said your book of business, aside from your salary, there's a commission based on that loss.
Well, we don't make commission if you're independent.
Independent,
we
make commission.
Yes.
That's
if
why
you are working for a specific casino, you make a base salary and then you make bonuses.
Bonus. Yeah, bonuses. But they're making their commission.
Correct.
They're keeping it and then giving you your bonus at the end of the year.
And let me tell you, for the independent side,
yes, huge.
They've cut back a lot. The casinos are really trying to kind of move away from that.
Yeah.
But man, those guys were killing it in commissions.
Oh, we killed it for those 2.5 years. That's no denying
absolutely.
that. Again, and this was with just one client, which was Phil, and because he gambled, and again, he's a $1 million player, and then you demand things, and that's what we're gonna go into as the player when he has this host. And there's levels, because even at the low level, they'll get you a room, they'll get you some dinner, maybe.
Right. Soft costs, no
little
big deal.
things. But what I started trying to educate some of these other players is, you can get flights. Could be a private plane, depending on how big you are. They will fly you in if you're gonna play X amount of money. They want to know, and how much time.
Correct.
We're gonna talk about time too, because that's what people don't understand.
Yeah.
This is all called what they call theoretical, correct? Like everything's based on a theoretical number.
Right. Every single game that a player plays has a speed to the game, right? So for example, blackjack, on average, a blackjack player's speed of the game is 60 hands in an hour.
In an hour. At a full table. Or is this a one-on-one
just on
game?
average, but
because I had a big argument with some hosts over this when we was going through, because they wanted more rolls of the dice, and I said the amount of rolls.
Dice is a different beast altogether, and a lot of casinos actually do not market to dice players because the house advantages. There's not much of a house advantage marginally for dice players, right? And there's so many different variables of how you can play that game.
Yes.
Some casinos do not even bet or rate on certain ways that you bet. So hard ways or play odds and things like that. There's certain algorithms and things that they look at and say, okay, we're only going to rate the player if they play dice this particular way, just because of there's not much of a house advantage on the game of dice. The biggest house advantage games in the casino would be baccarat roulette.
Right.
Because the speed of the game and how many and the probability of that player winning.
Well, but it's funny you say baccarat, because baccarat, in my opinion, is really like a coin toss, and they take a vig on one side, which is the bank side. The player side is no vig. So if you win, you bet 100, you win 100. But if you win on the bank side, you win 100. They take out that vig, which is like, I think it's 5%,
right?
Which you lose $5, and that's really. Then they have another tie.
The tie.
But tie, you don't lose money if it's a tie. So it's not really an advantage unless you bet it and don't win it. And that adds another value.
Baccarat is a big game, number one, because of culturally.
Yes.
It's a big game in the Chinese community, right? And so you're talking big numbers on Baccarat.
I know.
And what's interesting
the
about
Asians
players.
are the biggest gamblers.
Oh, exactly. Yes. It's a huge business. I mean, but what's interesting, more importantly, is the reasons why people gamble and the cultural reasons behind. And so again, when we talk about when we would go after clients and market them and try to build those relationships, it was understanding the essence of why a particular person or a demographic of people actually play. So, for example, with the Chinese, they're typically more superstitious in the game.
Yes.
and they play based on luck and not so much on strategy or even on emotion per se. Whereas your domestic player, like, you know, American or even Canadian players, they're much more emotional when they play. The advantage of the casino is always this, that the casino doesn't have the emotion and it has much more bankroll. And the thing is, if we can get a player playing long enough, this is why there's that magic 4-hour number. Usually people don't have emotional control. They get really tight and emotionally, and then they start making poor choices, and that's how they start to lose their money.
And that's why you feed them all that liquor.
No, no, we don't do that.
No, the more liquor, the better the bad decisions. I know there's
no,
a
that's
case.
actually true.
There is a case. There was a case.
Smoke cigarettes anywhere.
Yeah, but smoking, they don't want you to have whatever vice you have.
Yeah.
They have non-smoking tables too, so it goes both ways.
They do.
But there was a case that the guy was talking about the liquor he consumed is why he lost all his money. He was trying to claw back.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember that. Yeah.
But
yeah.
you know, there's so many different things. Again, I like to constantly educate some of these players also, and the people, the audience that might be listening that are gambling. But we also used to get discounts.
Okay.
Which is, if we lost $1 million, he only had to pay $800,000, a 20% discount on loss. And these are things that people didn't realize, or still don't, I'm sure, that they don't realize they could get a discount.
And that was part
like
of...
that guy that you said, I don't want to get you in trouble or anything, but the guy that lost the $10 million, was he on a discount or was he
so that was part of the job when you're dealing with high-end clients, right? Because... it's not like, come to my hotel, I'm going to put you in a jet and you're going to stay in the best suite and you're going to have a great time. Part of what I was doing on that level was when you're traveling, you're also working out contracts and negotiating deals to try to earn their business because everybody's at them.
Right.
So now it's like, okay, let me do my due diligence. Let me see if I can find out what my competitors are offering this person. Let me try to build and nurture a relationship with them and then throw a deal at them. And then it's just kind of give and take and trying to figure out what makes sense. Because a lot of these people gamble at that level. I mean, they're business people. So they understand numbers. It's a numbers game for them. So it's like, okay, if I'm willing to send or play at a bankroll at a level that's, I don't know, $1 million or $5 million, what does that look like for me? And then can I leverage that? Especially for strategy players, right? Like, so blackjack, you get a lot of strategy players. And they're like, well, so their biggest thing is what are your betting limits?
Can I ask a question with blackjack? You brought up bet as strategy plays. What about like card counters? There's a famous gambler here that goes around named Don Johnson. You know who I'm talking about?
Yes, I know Don Johnson.
He's a card counter, correct?
I don't know that.
Famous card counter.
Is he?
Yeah.
Okay.
He plays blackjack. A lot of casinos let him in, and they know he counts cards, and a lot of casinos don't.
You know what's so funny about Don Johnson? I actually know the name because when I first started this business, I was an executive assistant to one of the vice presidents for the company I was working for. And that was one of his clients. And I even remember his account number to this day. Yeah.
Wow.
But he was an interesting guy for sure.
Yeah.
But anyways, you were saying?
Counter, explain what that means.
Well, you know, that's an advantage if you know how to count cards.
How many cards in it?
You ever see, there was a movie, I think it was called 21, and it was about card counting.
Some young kids, I remember some.
So basically, card counting is on the game of blackjack, okay? And, you know,
it's
obviously.
not illegal.
It's not illegal at all.
It's
You're
not
exactly
illegal,
right.
so I'm not trying. This is not an illegal thing to count cards. But if they find out you're counting,
they will back you off.
They
the
don't
game.
have to let you play.
They won't. You will not be allowed to play.
Oh, they'll block you off.
Explain to me, how do they know you're counting?
So basically, with card counting, okay, typically
and
it's
how
on.
many cards are there to count?
Well, it depends on how
let's
many
say
decks.
It's 8 decks. Let's say it's 8 decks. That's typical.
But
8
most
deck
card counters
shoes,
are not doing
8
decks.
decks.
They're not
They're
doing
shoes.
2
A
decks. A
They're
shoe
doing
is 6 to 8 decks
Yes.
in a shoe. Okay, so the shoe is that
Right.
long
Where the
piece that
cards
has all
come
the
out of,
decks.
yeah.
And then on a double deck is obviously 2 decks of
decks.
cards. So typically you'll find that the card counters
Is on
are
double
going to be
deck.
on double deck because
Yes.
it's less cards that they have to count.
Right.
And a lot of them do like a plus and minus system. So when a card comes out, they'll do like a plus 10 if it's a 10, call it. And then they'll, when the next card comes out, they'll do a subtract and minus. And then they can come up with probabilities of what the next card is going to be.
And bet according to that.
And, right.
And they make a bigger bet because they
sounds
think
like
the
a
10 is coming.
strategy to
It
me.
is a strategy.
I'm assuming everyone's counting cards. How else are they betting?
Everyone's counting cards at any, like, very
But not at that
limited
level.
levels. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's a very,
I count
people
cards,
practice
but I
it.
can't count cards like that. That's
Okay,
not
that's
going to give me
genius
the
level.
advantage.
That's kinda
it's
like-
not genius levels. You could train
just
yourself.
practice,
It's just,
yeah.
you could train yourself.
Okay.
And there's different systems of counting cards. I
Yeah.
know that also.
But the thing with the casino, obviously, they frown upon it. And if you are caught card counting, you will be.
But how do you catch someone if they're thinking?
So really, today's day, the sophistication of surveillance and the technology they
Sure.
have, they can pick it up.
Yeah.
And usually card counters get sloppy. I had a client, and he was a hell of a player, man. I hated to lose the account. But he was a really, really nice man, very aggressive blackjack player. And he was counting cards, but he got sloppy and he got greedy. Right now, I didn't know that he was counting
Greed.
cards because I'm not sitting there babysitting him at the table. But ultimately, what happened is they caught that he was counting and they backed him off the game. So he
Sure.
could come in the casino, he could play, but he could not play blackjack any longer. And it initially started with flat betting. So to explain that a little bit, typically a card counter is going to
This is
press
great.
their bet at different times, right? So let's just say you're at a $25 table.
This is how they catch them.
And the cards come out and they're betting, let's say $25, and then they're counting and they get a couple hands in, and now all of a sudden they're pressing on a hand that they typically wouldn't press on. So in other words, they went from $25 to a $200 bet on a 14 that they have in their hand that they're going to stay on when they would normally hit. So there's different variables of situations
Exactly.
where they're like, I know probability
red
from
flag.
doing the math. Yeah, and so
Over and over time. And
Because
they're watching.
he
Remember,
thinks he's going to win. He puts a big bet, then he'll slide back and keep doing 25,
mind you,
25.
she
Correct.
said- she's talking at a low level. These
Yeah,
guys are
but
betting
still.
high numbers, so
Right.
they're scrutinizing their bets from
It's
the
just more
beginning.
zeros behind their
Correct.
numbers.
A high roller walks in a casino, they're watching his every move, every play, because he could actually turn the lights out
Correct.
if he really has a
Yeah.
night like that. There's history.
I actually have a funny story.
There's historical,
Yeah.
that has happened.
So the same guy the same player that I told you that won or lost the $10 million, he tells me this really funny story. He was somewhere in Europe, and I don't remember where he was, but there was a small casino, and he was on vacation. He said, you know what? I'm going to go play in that casino. Now, no one knows who this guy is. You know, he's not like well known.
Sure.
Gamblers are celebrities in Las Vegas. Like if you're in
Yes.
the world of gambling, you know who those people are.
Exactly.
Outside of that world, and this is some of the allure of why gamblers come at high levels.
exactly
They
right.
love to feel like
Ego.
they're famous.
Ego.
100%, right? Ego expressive. That's my main marketing strategy, sales. Anyhow, so he's in this, he walks into this casino and he's looking around at the tables and he notices that there's not a minimum or maximum betting limit.
Wow.
Okay, this is really detrimental for a casino. This is something that our casinos in Vegas have learned a long time ago.
Put that number
There is a significance to making sure there's a minimum bet and a maximum bet on a person's bankroll because, like he said, the lights will go out. So here's what happened.
Someone will
This
turn the
guy
lights out.
says, "I need to see. I need to know who your casino manager is." So they go and get the manager. Yes, sir. What can I do for you? And they're kind of being a little standoffish, like, "Why do you need us?"
Right.
And he says, "I noticed that your table says there's no minimum and no maximum bet." Well, yeah. Are you sure? He says. And they're like, "Sir, yes." "You're positive you don't want to have a minimum and maximum?" "Sir, yes." I said, "Okay, I'll play." He cleaned them out.
Yes.
They had to stop the game at some point. Okay.
Can I ask? You're touching on so many things right now. So you said they had to stop the game. I want the
Correct.
audience to understand. He had that much money in front of him.
Yes, he
That's
was
why
winning
they
that
had to
much.
stop. I try to teach or
What's the number?
educate.
Give
Here,
us
let
a
me
number.
explain.
And it wasn't even.
It doesn't need to be something crazy.
What, like a million for them?
Listen to me. It doesn't
No,
need to
it
be
was-
nothing crazy.
Uh-huh.
if you ever watched the movie Casino,
with
Ocean 11.
Ocean 11. Okay.
They was Robin Bellagio.
Uh-huh.
They said, we're doing it on the fight night. They're going to have $180 million in the building. It's not that they're thinking they're going to need $180 million, but if a high roller comes in and wins $200 million or $180 million, they have to have that money in the building
To pay him.
To pay them. Correct.
And that's probably what he did. So that's why they stopped it, because they don't have the money in
to
pay
the
him.
building to pay him.
They can pay him what he has right there. But
And that's it.
Well, no. I mean,
And
what
then
he
he
has
might
in
went
front of
past
him are
that.
chips, right?
Yes.
Right.
They have to be able to convert that to money.
cash.
So when they
Correct.
seen that he already had all
So
the
he's
shit,
at this amount, and they stopped the game. And they said, and at this point, everyone in this little casino is watching, who is this man that just stepped in?
I love it.
And he said they go to and he says, you want me to stop? And he says, sir, the manager pulled him aside, we are unable to fulfill all of that money. So they paid, he said they literally emptied out their cage.
All of it.
Paid. He said to the point where they were counting coins and still he had a deficit. They asked him if he could come back in 2 days so they could pay him the
And
rest
the
of the money,
rest.
but they shut the casino down for 2 days because of that.
Now
That was a valuable lesson for that
hold on,
casino.
let me
I
ask
said,
another question.
okay, because I was
this
like,
is
did
so
you not feel
crazy.
bad? Those people didn't work for 2 days.
Yes.
He's like, nope, that's a lesson they needed to learn.
Did he could have sued them if he chose to.
For him,
it didn't mean.
Okay, right here in Vegas, I believe
it was just the thrill of the story for him.
I
Yeah.
know, but he could have actually got equity of that casino. Again, cases of that happening when these casinos don't have the money. They'll either get closed down. There's so many rules and regulations in Vegas. You said this was somewhere else. So
Yeah,
I
in
don't
Europe.
know.
It was in Europe.
So it was in Europe about
Yeah.
theirs. But I know in America, if they don't have that money, the player could impose all types of penalties on
But you
them.
know that doesn't happen. I mean, we're talking in Vegas. That's something of the wild, wild west, if
Back-
you will, right?
back in
That's
the
like
day.
the
Now
mob
they're-
days or
but,
whatever.
you know, now
Nowadays,
they know that.
and you'll know it as a player. If you're a high level player, there's only certain casinos you're going to go to because those casinos are that they can handle, they can facilitate
I
those
have a
levels of
story.
bankrolls, right? There are literally casinos that started taking in high action and realized, okay, we can't take the high action because at the end of the day, it's very glamorous to have those high end players, but they're not overall incredibly profitable
Right.
for the casino because marginally, if you're discounting their money like you were talking about earlier, and you're constantly paying them and you're discounting, when they win, they're not saying, okay, here's your discount.
Right.
Right. And so if you're giving them these really rich deals, and some of these deals are very, very rich, money up front, et cetera, it
Yeah,
could be
we
very
used to get all of
costly.
it.
And you'll start to see trends in casinos if you go and you're a gambler yourself, where you used to get these deals if you're high end and you're like, now they're not giving me these deals or they're not giving me these kind of discounts. I mean, I remember when I first started in this business, we would buy crazy watches and cars, and their ladies would get these and crazy shopping sprees, and it was just like there was no such thing as no if it was the right
If
player.
they're coming in and playing.
And now they started scaling back and saying, all right, we just want the slot players who will sit down, play their machine all day, maybe go to the coffee shop to take a break and come back
and they're
because
still getting the big guys because they're gamblers. They're
Yeah.
gonna
Yesterday
come
when we
in.
walked into that one little rinky dink spot, wasn't nothing crazy. I'm like,
Everyone's in there.
it's 11 at night.
Well, you look at like the Seminole, like in Hollywood, Florida. I
Yes.
used to go to that property quite a bit when I was doing my job, and it was just great to network there. And the emphasis on the slot players, they have no dice tables there at all, right?
Yeah.
And they had this emphasis on slots, and I was like, God, this is really this is where the money's at for the casino.
Yeah.
Because slot players will just play, and they're low maintenance. They don't really ask for much. And because a slot payout is $10.99, you have to pay and all that stuff, there isn't this conversation about discounting anything. It's like you win, you lose kind of
That's
thing.
it.
There's obviously there's always going
And
to
it's
be
very,
exceptions.
they're literally on that machine. They're like robots.
What's the average? Is there a number to the average time a slot player sits there?
Oh my goodness. I had a player once. She was a slot player and she was great. We as casino hosts love the big high rolling slot players because to give you some texture, let's say I have $100,000, $150,000 solid slot player. And we're not talking video poker or Keno. We're talking the reels, the lines and the multi-lines, that kind of a player. $150,000 slot player is equivalent to my $500,000 player with much less costs because theoretically they just drive the numbers. The allure to the big table players is the casino loves to see the drop of the casino. They want to see that this player came in and they took action because that casino, that drop is good for the numbers. They want to see that money drop.
Sure.
Yeah, regardless of the outcome, because over time, if the player plays the right way, average bet, time played, and what have you, the house will eventually win.
Yes.
So it's not
Can't beat the house.
And the
in time.
misconception, especially with casinos, a lot of players think, oh, the host wants me to lose my money, and that's not necessarily true. We want you to put in the time because we're looked at by the time played more than we are
the win or lose, profit.
the
or
loss. Yeah, yeah.
But why is that? Why the time place is so important?
Because you can't beat the game. In time, you cannot.
The longer
beat
they
the game.
sit there, the
game,
house will
every
win.
game in a casino is designed to beat you. You cannot beat the game. That's why they're looking for someone cheating or taking advantage because that's the only way they'll beat the game. Really, the only way to beat a game is in short periods of time. And if that's the case, the hosts don't want to comp you anything or give you
Correct.
nothing.
If you don't put the time in, forget it.
You're not on the table enough. I try to explain this to my brother all the time.
Yeah, you got to take the thing is, the casino looks at it like this. If you want me as a host, or this is how I would look at it, let me speak for myself. If I'm going to take care of you and set up all of these accommodations and do all these things and get you in the casino and give you money even and work this deal out, you have to give me a fair shot of your money or don't bug me about the deal. Right? If you just want to go in and play and do your thing, then don't ask for complimentaries or anything like that. Just go do your thing. But it's a yin and yang. It's like, this is a business. And so if I'm going to work with you, I'm going to tell you what I can do for you, and I will go to the end of the earth to get that done for you because I want a customer. They would say there's hosts who are hosts for the casino, and then there's the host that's the host for the player. I was always a player's host because I really cared about the well-being of the customer at the time. And I also really cared that they were getting a fair deal. But they had to be fair in return. You have to give me a fair shot at the bankroll.
Sure.
Because this is why I'm giving you these incentives.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, the host world, I love all of these things. And it's so exciting again at the time. And like you said, these cutbacks have now came into place.
Yeah.
Where they're not giving out as much and everything.
Well, casinos are more corporate, right?
Yes.
They have, they have their own IPOs. They have stockholders and shareholders and things like that. And, these people are looking at numbers,
That's it.
And it's like...
Bottom line.
Yeah, and players are, and they don't care, nor should they.
What casinos everywhere now?
Oh, casinos are growing, yeah, sure.
And that's another big issue too, right? It's like to get a player in today is very different than when I first started out in my career.
Harder or easier?
It's a lot harder.
Okay.
Because number one of the biggest problems, in my opinion, is that the responsibility of the casinos and giving out, extending credit to players. So I'll give you an example of a player that I had who. I had built such a great relationship with this guy, and he was such a good man. He was a good family guy. And he had a thriving business, but he had a problem, And the biggest problem with him is that he started off with a bankroll. It was $250,000, and he could afford that bankroll. When he filled out his credit application, the question is, what amount are you requesting? And the emphasis is whatever amount you are requesting, you have to be comfortable losing that amount of money. Now, the casino that I worked for, I felt like we were almost frustratingly responsible. And so we always did a lot of due diligence and things like that. So we tried our best not to overextend people for credit, right? Now, the players don't want to hear that. Now, the problem is our competitor, he would go over there to play with the competitor, and the competitor had multiple properties.
Push it up. Higher.
Well, they qualified him there, so now they're going to qualify him over here, but they're also going to qualify him for that same amount of money in multiple places.
One of his places.
So imagine,
he can bounce
I wrote a credit app that says I'm comfortable with losing $250,000. When a player is in energy motion of losing and they've lost their bankroll that they're going to have to pay back in 30 days or 45 depending
days.
on what the disposition is. Yeah. Talk to me. I'll get your 45 days, right? Yeah. But now you're looking at 5 other places, $250 each.
That's
now
right.
you're down $1 million.
and a quarter.
Maybe more. You might have left for 100,000 because you were scared.
So this person who was ideally
She's
comfortable.
She's describing my life right now. She doesn't even know it. I'll tell her.
I'm telling you,
too.
I saw it all the time, and ultimately that took him down a rabbit hole.
Yeah,
because what he would do was he was trying to leverage the
Try to
credit
win over
lines.
here to pay over here.
Peter,
Correct.
Pay, and Paul.
100%.
And that's
it
the gambler's
worked.
mindset.
The problem is,
No,
though,
you'll hit
the
the-
problem always with a gambler is the fact that they win.
Oh
they will
my God.
always
So
chase
true.
that.
Once it happens once, that win, that comeback, you think you could do it every time.
I had another guy.
You have to learn to walk away.
And I could not
And that's
stand.
hard.
I could not stand this guy. This guy was a piece of work. And here's another thing. I don't want to ramble, but
No,
what
this
I
is
found
great.
very interesting. Okay, when I first started the job, I was very intimidated by people who had this kind of money that could throw into. Because I'd never seen anything like that.
Sure.
You know, a $260,000. $260,000. That wasn't even like the cost of my first home. You know what I mean? So I was very intimidated, and some of them are bullies, and they're egomaniacal, and they want to run your world, and you feel like you have to scurry and do all these. And I was very anxious in the beginning.
At the beginning.
And then I started realizing I'm probably going to have a job and income longer than you are,
Oof.
right? Because it doesn't matter how much money you have in your life. What matters is your relationship to that money. Because that's what will determine whether or not it's sustainable. Okay? And so what I started realizing is
Mine
that
wasn't sustainable.
it wasn't. But most people.
The feds came in.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
But that's not. But it's just, again, it's education on money. It's relationship with money. We all know that wealth is a state of mind versus then riches, right? And so I would see these rich people, these wealthy people come in and squander their money because they're unhappy, or they're depressed, or they're trying to shut themselves away from their world.
Right.
And
You know, a lot of athletes ran into these problems.
I saw
They run
my fair
through-
share of athletes in my career,
I'm
for
sure they run through that money, man, and it's gambling.
I have a funny story with Charles Barkley. Did I ever tell you that story?
Charles Barkley, oh man.
Go ahead.
And I could totally tell this story. It happened in public, so anybody else could tell the story.
Sure.
So, ironically, I'm referencing the player I was just talking about that overextended himself. So I knew, you kind of know after you've done it for so long, you kind of start to see patterns, and you start to realize that, okay, this person's, they're getting themselves into some trouble here, right?
Sure.
And again, integrity is very, very important to me. And so
That fiduciary responsibility.
absolutely. And not everybody in my world, as far as the job that I did, has that consciousness.
Most
right?
don't.
They don't. They don't have
Most
their little,
don't.
They
I
don't
know
have their
that.
little Jiminy Cricket sitting on them.
Most do not have it. I deal with
do.
them all. Yeah.
And it was a very big deal to me when I knew that a person was really tapping themselves out. Now, it's a delicate conversation because it's not it's liabilities and things like that for me to say or accuse that they have a problem, right? And ironically, I was a global gaming ambassador for my company as well. So I was taught when to notice a problem and be certified in that, but yet I did a job that facilitated it. So it was very ironic. Anyhow, I digress.
So you gave him the drugs and then you had to rehab him.
Right. Here's your brochure.
You got him hooked on heroin.
Here's your brochure. Right,
Stop.
right.
You looking bad, boy.
When the fun stops. Yeah.
You hooked.
So anyhow, this particular player had blew their bankroll with us, right?
Sure.
And I knew they were going to start chasing, and I didn't want them to go and gamble at other places. So he calls me up, the player, and he says, "Lorraine, I'm at this other casino, and come have dinner with me." And I was like, "Well, I'm really not supposed to go to competitors' casinos because of my position, right? So we can go to the restaurant, hang out, and that's it." But I really want to talk him out, try to get him to leave the place.
Right,
Yeah,
you knew what he was about to do.
Oh yeah. So we go have a great dinner, what have you, and he's like, I really got to play a little bit. And I'm like, I don't think you should do it. And he's like, come on, just come with me. Maybe you'll be a little good luck. Just come sit down. I said, okay. I can't stop him at this point. He is adamant that he's going to go play. And I know he's going to do it regardless of whatever I say.
Sure.
So I say to him, I'll go sit with you, but you have to do me a favor. Do not mention to anybody at the table that I'm a host at another place, right? And I made sure that I was not going to, because some hosts will do it, they'll try to, if you're in the high rollers room, you got a bunch of potential clients. So you have to be, for me, I was like, okay, I got to make sure I'm very responsible and not like, hey, what's your number so I can call you kind of thing, right? So I was very responsible in that manner. So anyhow, we go into the high limits, and he draws a marker, and he slides over $10,000 to me, right? And he says, I want you to have this. And I said, absolutely not. I cannot accept that. And he's like, Lorraine, you have been so good to me over the years. You've always helped me out. I know that you are not supposed to take money, but you're not on your clock. I'm not trying to hand you money at your property. And this is what I want. And he goes, and I'm very superstitious, so I don't want you to give me bad luck by not accepting my gift. Twist my arm, why don't you? So I say, okay, I'll slide it over here, but I'm not going to gamble. Because in my mind, I'm like, I'm just going to give him back the money, right? And some people are like, I would have took the money, whatever. But I just had this like thing. And now he's telling me he wants me to gamble. But I want you to play. And I'm like, I don't want to play. I really do not want to play. And I'm worried. I'm like, what if someone recognizes me? Because at this point in my career, people know who I am.
He doesn't understand that. He doesn't get that part.
He just was focused, and he wants what he wants, and he wants me to sit there and play with him. The thing with it, again, it's about building relationships. And I'm going to talk about how I learned to build relationships, learning their fifth person. But there's something about him looking at me, because I knew his family, I knew his wife, and I knew his job. It's like, you're going to do something so that way I feel like I can trust you, right? So you're going to do something that might compromise you, but I can trust you in the relationship. And it's an unspoken thing. So I think for him, by me saying, okay, fine, I'll gamble with you and I'll play with you, it's like, okay, it was like a passage into his world, so to speak, right? So I said, okay, I'll play some money. Okay, I'll take $1,500 and I'll keep the rest of the money over there. Because truthfully, I was like, if he's really going to give me this $10,000, I don't want to gamble it. I want to put it in my purse, and I want to go home, right?
These chips out and get out of here.
Yeah. So I take $1,500. I go to bet like a $100 chip. He's like, no. He puts a $500 chip. You got to bet big. And I'm like, that's 3 bets. Well, I win. But he wants me to press it. But now I'm winning, and everybody else is winning. So now we're getting momentum, and my $1,500 turns into $10K because I'm not losing a hand. Okay. In walks Charles Barkley.
Wondering why you over here?
No, and I don't know Charles Barkley. Okay, I hadn't had I knew he was a player and things like that, but he was never an account of mine. I never met him or anything like that. So he has no idea who I am.
Right.
All he knows is there's a lady playing blackjack, which you don't normally see women at high roller tables and blackjack.
I was going to get to that next, like how many
And so it's me, one woman, and 2 men on each side, right? So he walks in and he's like, hey, little lady, do you mind if I get in? And of course, my customer and the other gentleman are so excited to see that it's freaking Charles Barkley. And I am too. I'm like, oh my God, this is Charles Barkley. He literally starts taking my chips and betting my hands for me. But he's going stack and stack. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to give him back that money, but I'm going to keep this money, right? And he's betting it down, and he's losing every single hand. And I'm thinking to myself, I know he has a reserve game behind me because I pay attention to the room, right? There's a reserve game. That's got to be his reserve table. And if he loses my money, I'm going to bet that he's a good guy and he's going to pay me back, right?
You're talking about Barkley.
Barkley.
Wow.
Because right there. And so, but everyone's excited because even though he's losing my hands, they're winning. Plus, they're playing with Charles Barkley.
Right.
So they're excited. It's not really my money, but I'm just kind of like cringing. And then he gets on this run. And he couldn't lose a hand. So he brought me back $10,000 plus another $10K. So now I got $20,000 off the $1,500. And I'm thinking, okay, I won't feel guilty about keeping, this is winnings. This is not his actual money. He gets all his money back, right? Anyways, long story short, Barkley goes, is this good? You happy? And I'm like, yeah, they're all excited. He goes and plays this game. The player ended up losing.
Oh, God.
He was up probably $300,000 from in addition to his bankroll of $250. So he's $550 up or $300 up plus he's got his money. So he can go pay his other marker and walk away with some cash. And he just could not stop.
Yeah.
and he put it all. And I, at this point, had cashed in my chips, and I've got the, my little chocolate chips in my purse.
Those are $5,000.
Yeah, $5,000 chips.
Chocolate chips.
And
Just for you guys
I'm ready
that
to
don't
go.
know.
I want to go home. And he says to me, we got to go to one more casino.
Oh my God.
And I said, we can't do it.
So he loses there.
Yeah.
You win.
I have my money.
And now he wants to go somewhere else.
Yeah, because now he has another credit line.
Yeah,
Now
he
he's got to chase two.
He's chasing.
He's got to chase
go.
because now he's in the hole $500,000, right?
Yes.
So now he's hoping that this other money will dig him out of his hole. And I said, I don't think it's a good idea. I really think we should call it a night. Rest on it. And if you want me to come back with you tomorrow at a different place, but you got to rest. No, he just couldn't. So we call the car, go to the other place. And I'm like, this place, for sure, they're going to know who I am. And I am taking a huge risk because, mind you, I have $5,000 or $25,000 in chips.
Yeah.
And I'm really, I felt like really anxious, like, okay, I don't know if this is the right thing or whatever. I was really nervous. Anyhow, we get to the other place and he takes out his marker there and he loses every penny.
Oh my God.
Next.
And
How long
he's
did it
like,
take
let's
him?
go. And I
doesn't
said,
take
and I
long.
remember looking at the money in my purse and I'm looking at him and I told myself, do not take this money.
Give it to him.
Give him this money. Let him do whatever he wants with it. But there is no way you're going to feel good by watching this man lose all this money and walk away with $25,000 in your purse. Number one, it's not worth my career. And number two, this is now my friend. And so I said to him, I still have the $25,000 in my purse. And he said, no, that's yours. He's like, you gave me back my money. That's money you won. And I said, I wouldn't have won this money had you not given me money.
Right.
And I can't walk away with money in my pocket if you're not walking away with money in yours. And he goes, all right, let's try it. He goes, we're going to double it and I'm going to double what you got paid. And of course, he lost every penny.
Everything.
Yeah. And I remember going home because in my
yes,
mind, I had
yeah.
already spent that money. I knew where I was going to put it and everything.
Yeah.
I remember driving home,
It's got to be something.
tail
'cause
between my legs. And I
you
was
don't
like,
see any women gamblers like that. Like,
oh, they're out there.
the
Oh.
major women gamblers, right?
Oh, they're out there for sure.
Wow.
Oh, absolutely. Different games sometimes, but there's some heavy hitting blackjack women out there too now.
Get women, lady gamblers. I have seen that. I just don't see. It's so rare.
Yeah,
It's really.
it's not as
is.
common, but I've seen women, particularly in slots, and you can lose a lot of money in slots.
That's where I seen them in slots.
Yeah,
Actually, that's
yeah.
where I see them. They sit there and play big in slots.
Yeah,
Man. So with being again dealing with like these high rollers, let's get into some of their demands of what they want. Like when
Oh,
they
my
come
Lord.
in.
do
Like
you
give
really?
me some. Just again, give me some of the most
I'll give you one of the craziest.
outlandish. Yeah, one of your craziest
Okay.
clients and demands. Because I could give you some with Phil that but Phil wasn't crazy. He would just maybe say, we lost, let's say, and he was like, I want some of that Screaming Eagle. Bring that wine that
Yeah.
costs whatever and bring
It's
it
funny
in.
you say about the wine. I had a customer. He's an A-list celebrity, very, very famous person, very private, and we were taking care of him. And I would get frustrated sometimes with dealing with this. And at the time, I had a partnership. It was good cop, bad cop. It was myself and this other girl. And I'm the dark hair, brown eye, and she was the blonde, blue eye, right? And so we would hit the road, and she was very bubbly and friendly, and I was the
Yeah.
closer, right?
Yeah.
We double whammy them. And it was easier as a woman to travel with
I'm sure.
in pairs.
That conversation is just easier.
So anyhow, we have this customer, like I said, very famous person, and he had a bankroll because he has the money to have the bankroll and the notoriety, but he didn't play to the level of his bankroll, but he had a demand like he played to that level. And because of who he was, I felt that we would go above and beyond. But the problem with that was my bottom line, because I'm a businesswoman, right? And so
Sure.
it was like, he is not profitable to us, even for me to make my production numbers and to make my bonuses. He puts us at a deficit because of how we take care of him. But he was cool, and it was cool to be in his company, right? So on this particular day, he would order like this spread of food, and but it would always be him, and he was kind of a very like lonely kind of person, and he always asked really thought-provoking questions. So you could tell he's very intelligent. But he would call us up, and say, "Where you guys at? Come up to the suite. I want to talk to you guys." So on this particular day, he's winning money, I don't know, like $300,000, $400,000. But his costs again are like, whew.
Yeah.
And he calls the butler and he says, "Bring over this particular bottle of wine." And he brings the wine. He shows us the label, and it's got this beautiful label. And he starts to tell us all the details of this wine. And I'm in the back of my mind, I'm like, "How much?" Because we're paying for this. "How much does this wine cost?" And he says. So I ask him, and I go, "Well, it's a good year, and that's a good vineyard. How much is that bottle of wine?" Out of curiosity, right? And he's like, $6,000. Pops the cork.
Yeah.
$2,000 for me, $2,000 for you, and $2,000 for you.
That's right.
I pick up the glass. Cheers. It wasn't even that good.
Yeah.
But yeah, so funny stories like that. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but when you
No,
said that,
that
it
was
reminded me.
it. That
So some
wasn't cutting you
demands,
off.
okay?
No,
Listen,
yeah, demands. That's,
I've had customers ask me, where can I get my 8-ball? Of course, girls are always the thing. I always have to give my, not always, but a lot of my customers, listen, do me a favor tonight when you're hanging out and you see a really attractive girl that wouldn't normally like you, and she comes with another girl, please, before you go up to the room to do what I know you're going to do, put all your shit in the safe.
Oh, man.
Because she's going to drug you and she's going to rob you.
Yes.
That is what's going to happen.
That's what
And
they
how many
do.
times does that happen with my guys? And I'd be like, didn't
Over
I
and
tell
over,
you?
Over and over.
What are you going to do, call the police?
With Murder Inc., we dealt with a lot of that just being on the road. So we would always have the keys to the artist's room to make sure
That they lock their stuff away.
Just to
people
make
get
sure.
sloppy.
So we was really careful with that. But I could only imagine with these casinos. So even when we was running around with the casinos, we would have the girls that would actually, they was very slick. They would say they need to get a key to the room.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say we're in a villa and then you put their name on the room and now they have access to order and get whatever. They would go to the shops and buy hundreds of thousands of dollars of clothes.
And charge to the suite.
Charge it right to the room.
Yep.
And it's getting written off. And then we had to make an adjustment for that, because these are all the things these professionals out here in Vegas, this is what they...
Well, one thing I've learned, and I don't mean with all due respect, but when, they say women have PMS and I say men do too, right? But there's this power, money, and sex. And when they get caught up in that, right? When they get caught up in that world, they actually really think that most of these women just like them.
Oh my God.
It's like...
They only like you for the night.
She is drop dead gorgeous, because men and women are smitten for different reasons. They fall in love for different reasons. I always say this, like men fall in love with women they are attracted to, and women become attracted to the men that they love. So if a man sees a woman who's young and aesthetically stunning, and he even knows what she's about, they get so stupid.
Yes.
It's
funny.
And a lot of women know.
It's sad. It's so
especially
bad.
in
Believe me.
Vegas. The ladies know.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of those men haven't had experience with women, let's say, or understanding women. They've been so busy creating money or creating wealth, stuck in these offices or whatever they're doing, that when they get a little bit of time.
That's why they have basketball wives on TV.
That's 100%. No, that's exactly right.
I tell these players, I said, if you only knew who you were, you wouldn't have did what you did. But, that's a whole nother story.
Oh,
you
yeah.
would understand it better.
Yeah, no. And a lot of them, coming out of college, I mean, from an athlete's perspective, but she probably deals with guys that are athletes, and some of them, high rollers, aren't athletes. They're just businessmen at the same time.
They just made money.
And they just don't know how to interact with women, bottom line.
Imagine you were nerdy or geeky, or you just had no game whatsoever.
Like a lot of them
So
do.
let's exclude athletes and celebrities for a second, because girls they just love them just to love them, right?
Yeah.
But we're talking about these CEOs and these big, tech guys and things like that.
Nerdy.
And they just never had game. And now they're on a table and the girls are walking around and they see this big bet, and that's an opportunity for them, right? And the guys are so like smitten just by a pretty girl giving them attention. They just get sucked up, you know? The athletes and some of the other guys, unless they're really young, they're not as naive to it. Like I had a friend who used to be a player, used to be in the NFL, and he said, man, when I first got into the NFL, and I got my big diamond earrings and stuff, he's like, these freaking girls. He's telling me about a story where a girl literally was kissing all on him, and she used that tongue, took that diamond ear, and put it underneath her tongue. Took his freaking diamond. It was like a 3-carat diamond.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of
these women are vicious.
See, a lot of the athletes,
I love it.
A lot of the athletes in college, they kind of ran through, like they went. So what happens is, in our world, when you're in the rap world, it's kind of hard. You always have your guard up because you know what the gold digger. You know, we're a little bit more, right? Like our thing is a little bit different. Like we kind of purposely know what we're doing.
Right.
Not taking advantage, but say, we know you want money, just hang out with us, pop bottles, blah, blah, blah. The next day you leave them in the hotel, whatever happens. But girls, after a while, they've gotten hip to that, so it's depending on who you're preying on, right? Some guys, they'll be like, get out of here with that. You ain't,
right.
You come to the, so how many times you come
we want to believe that we're that guy.
Exactly.
But the celebrity and the
no matter
athlete,
what, we want to believe.
That world is different as far as why the women want than it is.
Girls, they want to believe when they walk in that strip club that that's not a working girl and that's not what she's doing for a living. They want to believe that she's fucking with me. She likes me.
Mm-hmm.
They want to believe that.
Mm-hmm.
I get it. I understand it. I understand that feeling or whatever. But again, it's not real. And then a lot of them get caught up in it, especially if they're not, like he's saying, accustomed to it or in that space all the time.
I mean, right now, I'm a coach. I'm a life coach now. I do mindset coaching, all that stuff. But I literally did
a lot of that
coaching with my clients because even though I was female, I had to be masculine in my energy to really do that job. And I really had, a lot of my male counterparts in that career, they would always say, oh, it's easy for you to get customers because you got tits and ass and you're attractive, right? And it's like, no. I can get a conversation out of a man because I'm attractive, but I have to work twice as hard to get him to respect me. And so that was a matter of, and there's a lot of women, unfortunately, that were in my business that would take it to a whole nother level, right? They would do what they got to do.
Hey.
And so that created a reputation for all of us. No, but for real. You probably know some of them.
Yeah, I'm sure. Listen, I get it.
I'm sure
I know.
if I name drop, you're like, oh. But that made it also hard too. Because literally there were women that were in my field that compromised themselves in that way, and then the expectation that I would do the same. So it became such a grind to really get these customers to really respect me.
Absolutely.
But I had their back. I would be like...
Yeah, but when you mentioned mindset, that was your mindset.
Right.
I'm not going to be one of those. I'm going to stick to my guns regardless. Right. And men respect.
Yeah.
When they're going to try, every man's going to try.
That is true,
You've
actually.
been tried probably by every single one of them.
Of course.
They're going to try. Men are men. Let me see if she slips on this banana peel.
That's true, though. No, that is true.
Right? And then when you're like, no, I'm not walking, and then they kind of respect that. And then once they start doing business with you, they already know they can't. You put those boundaries.
Women get cock offers every day.
Every day.
All day.
All day.
I don't know what you're talking about.
What could you do with this? But that's a woman's problem. Like, that is part of the... I mean, that's what makes it so much harder when you're in the workspace, especially this space, because you're dealing with powerful men with a lot of money that come to gamble.
That been used to getting their way.
That used to getting everything they want.
And to your point, I'm not going to be the finest thing that they see when they walk into a casino, right? There is so many beautiful... Beauty is overrated, especially for us women. We could do so much stuff to ourselves to make us aesthetically beautiful.
Right.
But for a lot of the beauty that's out there, there's a hollowness internally, right? Yes. And so these men... can have what they want. The thing with me is, okay, she's attractive. Maybe she's not the most beautiful woman on the planet, but she's attractive and she doesn't want me. Right. So there was a chase there,
yes.
right?
And also the position that you're in.
And if
I get approached by a girl who's trying to get a free drink, it's different than a girl who's in a position you're in. You just said something that's
so important, and that's like, this is where I see a lot of men spiral into bad places with women, is because if the woman understands what you just said, that chase, and that's what the man really wants. Most men want to have that chase. We want to feel like we conquered something.
Right.
We could figure that Rubik's Cube out, whatever it may be. And then if she understands that, she plays into that. I mean, I seen them open a man right up to whatever they want.
And a lot of women don't. I mean, I talked to a lot of my friends. I mean, I said this on my show, actually. I said, a lot of women think they can sex their way into a man loving them. Like, oh, I'm going to put it down. I'm going to be the best they got.
Yeah, the first 90 days.
Do your thing.
It's a fun effort.
It's a fun effort.
The first 90 days is great.
But it isn't the way to his heart, by no means.
It's crazy. But then after that, now there has to be some substance, something.
Yeah, and a lot of women missed the boat on that one.
Yes.
Yeah.
again, I love this conversation
Yeah.
with the host and the dynamic of everything involved. But let me bring back to your podcast and the mindset. And what's that about?
So I created
And where can they find it? Let us know where we can find it.
Okay, so Coach Lorraine Lindsey is all my social media handles. So wherever you look for me, you can find me there. The podcast is on YouTube and it's on, Spotify and all that stuff too. But it's called the Lorraine Lindsey Podcast Show.
Sure.
Specifically, the show's titled The Mindsetters, and the whole theme of the show, Mindsetters. And my whole theme is if you can change your mind, you have the power to change your life. So me talking about this career and this casino business, me getting into that world and being able to make the money I have and have the relationship I had came from me, being alone on my own since 16. I became a mother when I was 17.
Right.
And I had a mindset that said, I don't have anything to give him tangibly, but I can give him a peace of mind. Now, how do I do that,
Wow.
And so I was able to, through a lot of trials and tribulations and work, and this is why my integrity was always so important, because I said, no matter what I do, if my son were to hear it, would he respect me? And that was the most important thing.
Respect.
Because you got to
rate back to respect.
No, but she said something that I live by right now. And it's funny because I told Irv about it. I said, some of the things you do is because you don't have a daughter. See, I would never do something that I would be embarrassed about that my daughter might see.
It's
I have a
crazy.
son, but my daughter, once I had my daughter, I'm like, man, that's not good. And I always live with a lot of integrity and respect. That's not what I'm saying. I wasn't living all the women that I've known and dealt with, they will all attest to that. I'm sure of it. It doesn't matter. But at the end of the day, I took it to another level once my daughter came around. And I made sure of that. So you just said that with my son, and I'm like, wow, that's how I look at it.
And you know what also, if I may piggyback to that real quick, and I'm sorry to interrupt you. Also, too, I didn't grow up with a father, right? My father that raised me, he killed himself, right? And my biological father just was never really around. He just wasn't there. But the man that was father to me took his life. I had a hard time growing up. And then there was a lot of domestic violence and abuse in the home that I grew up in. And so I had a very poor idea of what men were and who they were, right?
What's your nationality?
Half Jamaican and half British. My mom was a beautiful black, ebony Jamaican woman, and my father is a British guy.
Oh.
Yeah, white guy. So
you're Puerto Rican.
So I'm Puerto Rican. That's exactly right. You know what? It's so funny. It is so funny you say that because first of all, most people think I'm a Latina, right? And every time someone says, "What are you?" and I say, "Well, I'm Jamaican and British," and every time you put that together, you get a Puerto Rican from Brooklyn because everybody thinks I'm from the East Coast as well, and I was actually born in England. So
wow,
yeah,
that's awesome. That's a dope story.
Yeah. So I didn't grow up with a father, right? I didn't have, and I had very poor ideals of what men were and who they were.
And let me get this straight. And then when you had a child young, was the baby father or he kind of took off?
No, you know what? And I have to say this in fairness. I was a single mother. Me and him never got married. But in fairness, and I think women don't give credit to men when they need to get credit, is although we were not married and we didn't cohabitate to take care of our son, he was very much an active father in my son's life.
Okay.
And the reason being was because I allowed him that space.
That's what I was just about to say.
Right? And a lot of women, you're young, you have your kid, and you get mad at your baby daddy for whatever, and you make it personally, and you use your...
because you didn't necessarily have your dad. Because sometimes, really, women that end up leaving, they're not as hard on the dads to be in their kids' lives. Usually didn't have their father. You know what I'm saying? Like they sympathize. My son has to have their father in their lives. I didn't have mine. Would that play?
Or some women just use it as leverage, right? They think that they're going to use their kid as leverage for their personal relationship. Yeah. And what I learned was I don't have a father. I didn't have one, and I know what that feels like. So I'm not going to be pathological and create the pattern.
Yeah, that's what he was
saying.
No, I have to have in my son's life. The father has to be in the life.
If he wants to be there, I'm going to let him be in that space.
But you said the main thing. You allowed it because most women don't allow it.
They don't because they take their
make
personal
it very
issues
difficult for the man. Let's say that.
And listen, ladies need to keep it real. I'm a woman, and I'm going to say it, and I don't hold back. But if you met a man that didn't have a conversation with you about trying to be a daddy, don't expect that he's going to have that right there. I mean, we set ourselves up sometimes. But if he decides that he wants to participate and be a father, let your child have that that relationship.
Of
It is so
course.
imperative. My son I was able to put him through college, pay for his education. He has traveled the world himself. This is a woman who had a child at 17 years old. Why? Because I was able to create a relationship with his father, and that meant that his extension of his father, meaning grandmothers, grandparents, his tribe,
That's
that tribe,
right.
it took a village.
Yes.
And I had to set aside my indifferences with that man so I could have a bigger village for my son.
Absolutely.
And as a result, by the grace of God, I have a young man who has a good head on his shoulder, a young black man,
Yes.
and who is thriving. As a matter of fact, he's got a nice little job in New York. He's living in the financial district, 25 years old.
Oh,
Hey,
nice.
baby. So,
Awesome.
anyhow, long-winded answer, but I was saying that also part of me having a son, it was a gift, because what I had to learn, and this is why the integrity and who I was so important, because my son was the first young man in my life to say, in order for me to believe in men, despite what I grew up with and despite what I learned, I have to raise one. And part of me raising a really good man is he has to be able to feel like he can respect his mother and the choices she makes. So I will work hard for him, but I will work hard with integrity. And so even though I got these great jobs in these casinos, I was never going to compromise
Your integrity.
my integrity for my son.
And even when no one was watching, you wasn't willing, because you probably could have done it, no one would find out.
Oh, so I was going to tell you guys about my indecent proposal.
Okay, yeah, let's listen to that.
I'll tell that real
And
quick.
I'm sure there's always an
Something.
indecent proposal
Yes.
story in Vegas.
This was a good one. So I'll make it really quick because I tend to be a little long-winded. I get very passionate about this stuff. Anyhow, so big account. Okay, it was a $2 million account. My partner and I worked really hard. She was doing the front end work to really close this deal. So we finally closed the deal. Okay, we get him in this beautiful jet, fly him out, make the deal. We're giving him a shit ton of money up front to come in and gamble in our casino. Meet him out. His beautiful wife comes down and she's just drop dead gorgeous, and he's just blah, right? I say that for a reason. At the time, I was doing all this training and stuff like that, so I was competing and everything, so I'm in like the best shape of my life, and he's like, wow, you're gorgeous, you're in incredible shape, maybe I could hire you to train my wife, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, we get him to the casino. Immediately, he goes straight to the table. Now, this is the ideal situation when you're a host, because you do this deal, you work all this stuff.
And right away.
You get them there, and now you're crossing your fingers and saying, every bit of money I gave him, every deal, every
He's
begging
gonna
and
put
pleading
on
my
the
boss,
table, not
are they
shopping
gonna gamble?
Right.
And he does what
Right
we
away.
love. So my partner and I are happy. We go up to the restaurant, open a bottle of wine. He's happy. Everything's good. And then we get a phone call.
Uh-oh.
He's livid. He's angry. Get down here right now. Oh my God, what's going on? The guy is a blackjack player, okay? And he is a strategy player. Now, when he plays a shoe, again, 6 to 8 decks, and he likes to cut the cards short. What that means is when they say cut the deck, he cuts it really less than a deck. Now, most casinos will not allow you to do that because there is an advantage to that, right? If you get a good run on a shoe.
I didn't know that. That's
Yes.
good to know.
So some players will negotiate certain little idiosyncrasies such as that, okay? Some people are superstitious and some people know the advantage in cutting a deck short. What happened is when he started gambling and he was betting his big bet, I think his average bet was maybe 30,000 a hand or 40,000 a hand. He was cutting the deck short and they stopped the game, okay? Now, he was okay with that because he knows the rules. Now, gamblers are very, especially when they're playing at that level, they're very savvy and they're always looking for a way for you to mess up, right?
They know what's going on.
Yes. So they said, sir, we have to stop the game. We don't believe you can cut that way. And he goes, well, call your boss and double check if I can cut the deck like this. If the answer is no, I have no problem. I'll cut it better. So he stopped the game. They made some phone calls and they let him continue. Okay. He goes with his wife to dinner, comes back from dinner. At this point, he's up $500,000. And they tell him, we just got a hold of our boss and you can't cut the deck that way anymore. So now we get the call. No one had called myself or my partner to say that this situation was even happening.
Going on, yeah.
We should have been informed right away.
From the door.
In fairness to this customer, he's livid and saying, I gave them a fair opportunity to make the calls and determine whether or not I could do this. Now, if I was losing $500,000,
They wouldn't
would we be
say
having the
shit.
same conversation?
Absolutely
He's got a
not.
valid argument. So now and he's like, fire the jet up. I'm leaving.
I'm out.
So now he's going to take his money plus the money we gave him and leave.
Wow.
And we got to fly him back
But
home.
we're still waiting for that indecent
Proposal.
proposal.
I'm leaving with a cliffhanger. I'm a storyteller.
It's okay.
So now we're begging, pleading. Our boss is like, you got to try to get him to play. We gave him too much money. We got to get this guy to fire. Like, we got to. We messed up, though. So now my partner and I are trying to nurture this relationship. We take him to this lavish dinner. He is popping bottles of Cristal like it's Fiji water, okay? And I'm like, we're paying for that, too? And he's pouring them, and he's just berating us about the game. And we're listening. He's got his, like, little doctor bag that has the $100,000 that we gave to him in cash, sitting there. Fire the jet up. I want to leave. So we're like, we can't start the jet till tomorrow. Hopefully you sleep on it and like whatever. He goes, I need you guys to get the butlers, come up to my suite. We go up to his suite. And he's got this big, 10,000 square foot suite. And my partner, she's the bubbly one. So she's drinking the bubbly and being bubbly while I'm trying to... And she's, nurturing the wife and things while I'm trying to convince this guy. Okay. So he looks over at me, looks me up and down, looks over at his wife, and he says, and let me mind you, he's a very heavy set guy, okay? My partner goes to grab a piece of bread from the table at the restaurant, and he smacks her hand. I don't like fat women. Please don't eat that bread in front of me.
Oh, my God.
He was such a big. Oh my God, yeah. So
money, something else.
Man, I tell you. So and he was. I'll tell you that. I'll tell you anyway.
All fair.
Yeah. So he looks at his wife. He looks at me and he says, "God, you're so beautiful. You can take this briefcase full of this $100,000, tell your friend to go, and just make out with my wife, and the money's yours." And I started laughing. I said,
was you laughing while you was kissing his wife?
Listen, she was not that cute to me, okay?
I thought you was going to have to kiss him. Your wife wasn't that bad. She said she was gorgeous.
No, she's beautiful. She's beautiful.
Yeah.
And he was, and she wasn't a wife that was with him because he had money. She had been with him since they were like 14, 15 years old.
Wow.
Yeah. So the money had kind of enhanced her and made her like, even more gorgeous. But she was a very timid person, right? And he was very disrespectful around her. So I laughed and I was like, yeah, have a good night. Right? And he laughed back at me and he says, I knew that you would say that. He's like, there's so many beautiful women walking around here that would have did it for $500. And he says, but the problem with you is that you're smart. Right? And he says, I was hoping that you were a bimbo. Or no, he said, I thought maybe you were a bimbo. I said, no, you were hoping that I was one. And there's a difference, right? And he goes, okay. Clearly, I gamble $2-3 million. It means nothing to me. And he goes, but I would love to see your mouth around my fill in the blank.
Yeah.
I will give you $1 million if you
perform this service.
Correct.
So I still have to kiss your wife? 100,000? Can we just...
Can we negotiate here?
No, wait just a minute.
You're looking at 1.1.
So...
this is a biggie story, small story.
Let's hear it. Y'all about to tell me the story?
He said, he says it's a skit on his album.
Oh, so after I shit on the bitch?
Yeah, so after I shit on the bitch.
Oh my God, I remember when I heard that, man.
But that's a man's perspective. It's different.
I know, but I'm just saying.
But that on that album, that was so.
That was
I remember
classic.
hearing that. I was dying.
He said, the bitch asked me to shit on her. He said,
so after I shit
what you do? He said, so after I shit on the bitch.
I gotta do what I gotta do.
Oh my goodness, yes, I remember that.
Oh my goodness.
So,
man.
He says to me, to show you that I'm serious, I will wire you half the money first. If you come back and whatever, then I'll give you the additional amount. So either way it goes, you'll have this much, right?
Man.
I was so, I have an ego too, okay? Yeah. And I was like, excuse my language, I was like, fuck you.
Yeah.
I'll fire the jet up tomorrow. I'm out, right? And he's laughing and he goes, you told me you had a son, right?
Wow.
Oh, wrong thing you could say to me.
Wow.
He says to me, I'm pretty sure your son could use that money. I said, oof. The value that my son holds to me is much more than your fucking money. I said, so you can get in your jet and you can leave. So don't you ever mention me and my son ever again, and I'm out. So now my friend, she's over there bubbling. I was like, let's go.
I'll do it for 400, 250, 250.
So here, this is so funny. I'm fired up. That Jamaican girl got really fired up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm out. Let's go. And she's like, what? What's going on? What's going on? So we're in the middle of the hallway. And I said, that motherfucker told me he wanted me to do this and this for $1 million, blah, blah, blah. She goes, wait, I'll do it.
Oh,
you better
Man, the
believe
moment she said that, but she knew I was so fired up that she needed to break my momentum, right? Because I was so angry.
She got
and we literally fell on the floor and we were laughing our asses off.
She got you to the car and she doubled back. Make sure you get home safe.
Wait a minute, where you get some new clothes in that new G-Wagon?
New deal for you.
Yeah.
But this is Vegas. These offers
But
are
that
coming all
was the
over.
craziest ever
Man, that's crazy.
scenario. Yeah.
That's crazy. What's the name? Come on, from the movie.
What movie?
Indecent Proposal.
Oh, Demi Moore.
Demi Moore
Yeah.
didn't turn it down.
Yeah, but it wasn't Robert Redford either.
Yeah, it's true, but
Okay.
it doesn't matter.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, that would have been a difference.
Yeah, of course.
She's like,
Just
wait a
the
second.
thought of it.
Right,
Ugh.
right.
You know, of course.
But you know what, though? Everybody, one of the most valuable lessons I learned from a player, I went to Dubai. And
there's a lot of indecent proposals over there.
oh yeah, especially being a woman. So I was very nervous to go, and I had never been. I had ignorance about what the country was going to be like being a woman, blah blah. And it was an amazing time. There's these two young men. They were from Kuwait. They were originally from Kuwait, and their family had ridiculous wealth.
Sure.
And they were super sweet. But one of the things that he said to me, I said, well, you're so young and you have like this crazy amount of money. I mean, you should have seen this place and his spread of cars. It was like unreal. You know, by the way, his favorite car, which was the most valuable, was a Ford Raptor.
Oh, yeah.
Because that was an import for them, right?
Yeah, Fords is way more
And I
expensive.
was like, really? And he's
American
like,
cars.
yo, you don't even know. Anyhow, I said to him, well, what do you want for? What is it that you want to pay for? Thinking when you can pretty much have everything you want. And he says, you're going to, don't judge me for saying this. And he's like, but when you have the kind of money that I do, my family have, you don't pay for things anymore. You pay for people.
Mm.
And he goes, and everybody has a price tag. And he's like, it's an evil thing. And he's like, and I'm just being honest with you. We'll literally play the game of chess and put price tags on people. I bet you if you pay this person this much money or offer them this much, they'll compromise this. And he goes, and every single time someone has a price point, and I can afford that. And that was like one of those lessons for me that was like, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the leverage.
That's
but
next level stuff.
We do that in the hood. The guy who's got the guy in the project with the Benz, he gets, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's kind of like that. It's money. Money's not the rule of all evil, but definitely it's something that has to do with man. It's
well, money just exaggerates or embellishes who you already are.
Yeah, money
right?
and power would let people know who you are.
If you're a giving person, you make a ton of money, you'll just give more.
Yes.
But if you are a person who has bad intentions, you can do more bad intention with money.
True.
Absolutely. But Lorraine, man,
Yes.
this is a great conversation.
Yeah, awesome.
Is there anything else you want to touch on before we wrap up?
No, I just thank you for the opportunity.
Definitely.
I'm no longer in that world anymore, but for anybody out there that wants to see what my work is today, I've learned to make money on provision, and now
Yes.
I'm making and earning my living on purpose. So I have my talk show or my podcast, Mindsetters. I do coaching, life coaching, mindset coaching, and business coaching. So if you look for me, Lorraine Lindsey, Coach Lorraine Lindsey, I also have CoachLorraineLindsey.com as my website. So thank you.
Thank you so much for this information and all the stories.
It's enlightening to see we have to, as far as, remember, I'm very touched when it comes to our daughters, right? And it's good to see women who have done it the right way, who have been able to deal with these high rollers, with all these men, not compromise who they are. And
Very
you probably
important.
didn't eat as good, but you slept like a baby. And
Absolutely.
we talk about that all the time.
We talk about that all the
the
time.
key to life, honestly, is peace of mind.
Absolutely.
My indecent proposals might be different. It's not in the form of cash. It's maybe something else that we'll talk off air, but I get indecent proposals offered not from a sexual standpoint, but from maybe doing something that compromises my integrity or something against someone that I would never do or something like that. And that'll never happen.
You have to know who you are, and you always have to be in alignment with that.
Yeah.
Because the moment you come out of an alignment with that, you will never feel good about self. And like you said, everyone thinks that they have to be happy. No, you have to live a life that you're fulfilled in, which
we
doesn't
gotta
always
sleep
equate to
good at
happiness.
night.
Right.
We gotta
I
sleep
think
good at
many
night.
people look at themselves in the mirror and don't like who that
They
person
don't like
is.
what they see.
Right. And when you sit in the mirror, I'm going to give you a little juice here. You're really looking, we're a spirit having a human experience.
Absolutely.
So when you look in the mirror, you're looking at the spirit.
Yeah.
And he's looking back at the physical. When you're talking to each other, which you have a conversation with yourself every day, every move that you make, the hand, the good, the evil. We all have evil and good inside of us.
Absolutely.
That's why. So you're constantly having that battle with yourself to do the right thing constantly. You did the right thing, but most people are taking the money.
Right.
10 out of 10 times.
Right.
Especially that kind of money.
9 out of 10. She didn't take it.
Right.
I
but
can't
she's
say
rare.
10 out of 10.
No, but what I mean is the
True.
artist, it's hard. That's true. I mean,
But again, it's abundance, right? I could say
99 out of 100.
you take
Yes.
money when you don't think you can make money.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Right?
again, when you're in that space, that's it's a hack. When someone can give you $1 million where you don't have to work 2, 3, 4 years, or whatever it took you to
Right.
get there, it's a hack. You might jump, and it's the toughest decision is when they present you an opportunity and you don't bite because you know you're gonna eat good, but you're not gonna sleep.
Right.
Yeah.
And listen, I remember set it off, you know what I mean? And Jada Pinkett compromised herself. If God forbid, my son was in a different situation and it was his health and his life dependent on, Mama might do a lot more stuff that she
Of
would
course,
normally do to make sure.
Of course.
But in that situation, again, I was like, I understand my abundance. I
Mm.
understand my own ability to make money. If I got to make $1 million this way, and I know how smart I am and how much I value myself, if I'm not willing to know that I could do that on my own, then
Right.
what's the point of even doing it? Because it's not making it that counts.
Yes.
What really is really fun, every billionaire, every million that I know, their stories of how they got there are much more incredible
It's
than the
amazing.
fact that they have the money.
Yes.
You know?
It's the journey. We
It's
were
the
saying that
journey.
yesterday.
It
It's the
really
journey.
is.
Life
Yeah.
is not a destination; it's a
Yes.
journey. And you know
Yeah.
how the movie ends for all of us?
Death.
We all die.
Yep.
And if no one hangs a picture of you on the wall, you will never hear.
Richest people are in a graveyard.
Yeah, but someone has to hang. This is the key of life. You can't take your money, nothing.
Look at
But
Bruce
when
Lee.
you cross over, is someone gonna hang a picture of you on their wall?
Mm-hmm.
Your son, whoever. If there is no picture of you on the wall when you're not here, you will never hear.
Yeah, your value is your legacy.
Yes.
How do you choose to leave it?
Why do you think they built a bronze statue or something? It's about legacy, definitely. So thank you.
But thank you
Yeah.
again.
Thank you. And y'all
Man,
got to come on
great.
my show.
Just
Definitely.
give us the date and time. And
Yeah.
We're pulling up.
I would love it.
But again, this is Chris Gotti Lorenzo giving them the business podcast. Keep liking, sharing, subscribing. My partner, Don
You
Dinero.
already know, Mr. Money for the Gringos.
And
Today's another
signing
day.
off, man. Thank you.